remind everyone again, for those of you who's joining us for the first time, if you have any questions for our speakers, you can ask them on the left-hand side under the questions tab, and I will be asking them live as we go along. So now I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker, who's a fellow Scandinavian. Woohoo! Go Scandinavia! And I'm going to say this, Jan Petter Lie. That's not bad, right? You know, maybe if we say in English, Jan Petter Lie. In essence, it's, but Jan, we'll call you, just so everyone sort of understands. So Jan, you are the president for Europe for Cybiz.
Yeah.
And Jan, you have an incredible track record. I've looked into you in sort of designing and providing solutions for dynamic control rooms and digital transformation in mission. This is all
critical rooms.
Mission critical environments, actually, it was written. But also, it mentions secure operation centers. Sounds very complicated.
It is complicated.
It really is.
Very complicated. Certainly the part that has to do with the government and defense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can imagine.
That's
because
security and mission critical environment.
Of course. I was just joined, and I did say to our audience that we have a little bit of a theme today, because I was just joined by Chris Dreyfus-Gibson, who also talked about, obviously, critical control rooms. But, I think let's start off with a simple question. If someone needs to design or, revamp their, critical control room or mission critical room, what do they need to consider? What's key to consider?
I think there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Critical control rooms, government and defense has a lot of similarities with control rooms in other industries as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I think there are a few things people have to consider, and some of the topics I talked about during the control room summit today.
Yeah.
One is that this is a very dynamic industry.
Yeah.
People need to invest in technology that can survive the next few years.
Yeah.
Everyone can tell us how they are working today, but they cannot necessarily how they're going to work 2-3 years down the line.
Yeah.
So they need to invest in something that is dynamic and that can adapt and change as the organization evolves.
That is so accurate. And that's what me and Chris discussed as well, that technology changes so quickly. But in an environment like a critical control room, you can't change it overnight. It's not going to work, right? So you need to think about something that's going to be sustainable long term, I guess.
It can potentially change.
It
can potentially change quickly. That is kind of how you design these rooms.
Okay.
And who actually has the opportunity to change things.
Okay.
So one of the things that we think about at Cybiz is that we want to give the customers the opportunity to have control and the keys to the system.
Okay.
Meaning that if the operators in the control room wants information, they don't have time to wait for somebody external to come in and make that change for them. There should be people within the organization that can make that change quickly.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what you do at Cybiz then. Like, what is it that you're changing in the industry?
We are standardizing something that is highly customized. Okay. And we do that on a global scale.
Okay.
So we are a Norwegian company with offices in 14 cities around the world.
Okay.
And when we go out and deliver mission critical control rooms, or it can be a control room for a bank or for an oil and gas company, we use the basic same principles.
Okay.
Everything is built on standardization.
Yeah.
Meaning that everyone has the same software to run these facilities. They build different, but the control system is similar.
Okay.
And that has a huge impact on how we look at our R&D and innovation, because when we innovate for one customer, it gets something that all customers have access to. And that's why, by saying we disrupt the whole industry, because these mission critical control rooms in the past were built with bespoke, customized solutions.
Wow. Okay. So if I'm going to generalize this, just to simplify it for maybe some of our viewers, is that normally when someone designs a critical or mission critical control room, it is normally bespoke, whilst you're trying to standardize it to make sure that it flows easier and makes changes quicker, I guess.
It makes the implementation easier because there are less unknowns. It has been tested before. It also simplifies the support process, because if you standardize technology across multiple sites, for example, it's easier for support people. And it's also making it easier to make changes down the line. Some of the control rooms that we are working on, they have within the private sector 5 to 7 years expectancy, and within government and defense and public it can be 10, 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
So it's going to build to last.
And that must be a change of mindset as well, right? Because if they're so used to having a bespoke solution, now going into a standardized solution, is that, I guess to some extent you have to work on their mindset change as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it is kind of an approach which is quite new.
Yeah.
Right. The fact that you can come into a Cybiz office and you can see it before you buy it.
Yeah.
You can test drive the car before you drive it.
Yeah.
It's something that is not really common in this industry.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make this type of control rooms off-the-shelf products or solutions rather.
Things that me and Chris talked about, which obviously it's not only important in your area of the industry, but I think generally everything that we do here is data. And data is obviously super important. That's where you develop, that's how you make actions. I'm assuming the data is still very much, how do you change that from a bespoke field to sort of like a standardized one?
Well, it kind of ties into the standardization principles because it enables changes to happen faster.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that's the complexity of building control rooms. There's so much data, and how do you actually make it usable for the operators of the control rooms?
Yeah.
And if you look at this trade show, there's technology everywhere, right?
Oh God, 100%.
And there's so many cool technologies out there, but does it really make sense for the operators? Does it actually make their life easier? Is there something that they can use when they are in a position where they have to make a difficult decision?
Yeah. And when we mentioned earlier as well that the dynamic control room, is that what you mean by having that long-lasting effect? Being able to change, or what do you mean by a dynamic control room?
Traditionally, a lot of control rooms were built very static, meaning that the control room operators was just looking at information that didn't change much on the screen. And a great example from the utility industry, the companies that produce electricity. Typically in the past, they were looking at one application that basically gave them alarms if something happened on the hydropower or the wind farm. Now that industry is changing a lot. The operators are using drones to inspect grid lines. They use digital twins to help the engineers in the field doing maintenance of these assets. They use trading applications to know when they're going to sell the electricity. And all of these things comes into a dynamic control room. Basically, it allows the operators to do more with less, and they can jump between tasks easier.
Okay.
And it goes back to my comment earlier. Everybody can tell us how they work today, but nobody can tell us how they're going to work 3 years down the line. Right? And that journey we want to be on with our customers, and we want them to be on that journey as well. So when they go live, that's when the control room is built, and when they go live, that's when the journey starts.
Yeah.
That's when they should be able to make these changes quite easily, instead of, okay, this is the system, now it's done, we have built it for you, you're on your own.
And I think that's one thing that the pandemic should have taught us, right? We need to be more agile. We need to be able to, move quicker. We need to build something for a long-lasting future, if that makes sense. And that's what you're trying to say here about the dynamic.
And that's what I talked about earlier. Yeah. I talked about the kind of unexpected event, because if most people, when the governments or the companies we worked for told us to go home and work from home, most people could just bring the laptop home and continue from the kitchen table or from a comfortable sofa, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people working in control rooms, they cannot work from home.
Yeah.
So how do you actually address that situation? How do you build these environments in a way that they can still continue to be operational?
Yeah.
And there are lessons learned now that I think are really very relevant for anyone building these type of control rooms, operational environments. Control rooms have many different names. Control room operation centers, crisis management, right? So,
of course.
And the list goes on.
I'm assuming, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here, but you don't believe that maybe the technology is ready for that long-term vision, right? Apart from maybe yourself, but you believe we need to see changes.
The technology is ready. And I think the technology that we build today, we're not necessarily going to use tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we need to build these systems in a way that we can change parts of the technology stack without changing everything.
It's almost like in our industries, SDKs. That's what we were using ours. It's building blocks that fits together, but you can change one building block and it doesn't affect the whole solution, changing. So that is a very dynamic solution, isn't it?
It is. Well, that's what we try to put it into context, because I think a lot of control rooms will change going forward. The number of new technologies, new applications, drones, AI, AR, all of this will at one stage come into the control room.
Yeah.
And then If it makes sense for the operators or for the company to use it, they should.
And we need to move quicker on that. So if we ignore the pandemic, right? Because we know a lot of things that's happened in a pandemic, but what do you think has been some industry changing things that's happened that's sort of developed where you're sitting today in terms of critical control rooms and
post-pandemic?
Both, whatever, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, whatever you wish.
I think the kind of the skills required for operators in these control rooms that's being challenged every single day. The learning curve that some of these colleagues are on is tremendous.
Yeah.
We have to also keep in mind that these are only humans, and they actually think about a police 911 dispatch center, for example. We have to think about the human element of people working in those environments. People are making really difficult decisions, under stress. So how can we actually build these environments? In control rooms, we talk about ergonomics, we talk about human factors.
Yeah.
And again, it falls back to a little bit what I said earlier. It doesn't matter how cool the technology is. People are going to sit and work in these control rooms for many, many hours.
Yeah.
24/7 potentially. And anything we can do to make their life easier, we should.
And you know what? And it's such an interesting point. And I mentioned this to Chris earlier, actually, that I had never considered the human elements of these control rooms. I just read into it about the technology, right? But, the technology can't drive everything. You need human interaction in order for you to do this, to take certain decisions, because our technology is just not there yet. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, we do. And it was one of the things discussed earlier today at the Control Room Summit. It's really the objective to reduce the number of people in the control room, or do we want to maintain the number of people, or do we want to increase it, right? Because yes, you can automate a lot of things, but also a dynamic control room also means that you can build it in a way that if the workload is less Monday and Tuesday of the week, then what are the roles, what other parts of the organization can actually use the control room for something else? Maybe they can use it for internal training. Maybe there are other roles and functions that can benefit from what has been built.
Being more dynamic,
exactly.
In essence. Exactly. All of this comes back to being more dynamic.
It comes back to it. Right?
Yeah. I asked Chris one question that I'm going to ask you the same question because I like this. Do you ever think that these control rooms are solely going to be driven by technology?
No.
He said the same thing, but I would love to hear what you say about it.
There's so many aspects of it. Even within the technology stack, there are so many different aspects you have to take into consideration. Yeah. A big topic these days is security. I don't know if that falls into technology or where it falls in. I already mentioned the ergonomics and the human factors.
Yeah.
Also, the environments that we're building in are sometimes challenging because you have access control, and some of these control rooms are deep underground, right? So there are a whole list of factors that we have to, and that's why I think a control room is not about just a screen on the wall.
And I think Chris said as well, sometimes you feel like, that human interaction is what you need, right? As well, even if it is someone on the other side of the phone. Like, self-driven cars still scare me, and I don't think I could ever get on board with it. Exactly. It's a Scandinavian Volvo, 100%. So we actually got a question online. It's from Taiwo. He says, what do you consider in choosing AV technology you integrate in control rooms? What should people think about if they could focus on the AV in technology?
It's a good question. And we have a slightly different approach. We start with the operational requirements for the control room and the operational needs for the operators.
Yeah.
And then we find the technology. That gives us flexibility to choose. Some of the technology at Cybiz we build ourselves. We build our own hardware and software, and then we integrate third-party technologies to make it into a turnkey solution. So we spend a lot of time trying to see what's available in the market.
Yeah.
If it makes sense from an operational point of view, a deployment point of view, and a support point of view, we will then add it into a potential solution.
Yeah.
That's also what gives us the flexibility, because we will choose different AV equipment for a top secret military control room compared to a less secret commercial control room.
Again, it's all about being dynamic, right? I love that we keep on going back to that one. We got one last question actually here. It's from Facundo, and it says, what do you think is the most important thing to consider regarding the human factor in control rooms?
Could probably talk for 2 hours about that topic. I think it's closely tied with ergonomics,
Yeah.
and what kind of life are we giving the operators in these control rooms? It's everything from the tables, the seats, the viewing angles on the screen. How far are you from what you need to look at? How are you going to collaborate with your colleagues? I don't know if it's part of it, but some of the conversations we're having now is even how can we be prepared for a potential next pandemic when we have to think about social distancing in the control room.
Yeah.
So there are many aspects to it. It's a complex area.
And as you said, some of these could be underground, right? They get no natural daylight potentially, which could have it. We know, like, even being in a show like this for 4 days, you go crazy after a while because you get no natural daylight.
Exactly. Yeah. When it's nice and sunny outside.
Exactly. I did a video coming in and I was like, actually, it's sunny outside, but you won't see it in here. Jan, thank you so much for joining us here today. I have really enjoyed our conversation. Hope you did too. You said you weren't sure if you were going to share it, but hopefully you will afterwards.
No, I really appreciate it. It's building control rooms. It's complex. And it includes so many different things. And at Cybiz, we design and build it.
Yeah.
So and we deploy globally. So we have to follow a model that gives us the confidence that we can go out and deliver according to customer expectations. And we believe in standardization. We want to follow what they're doing in the IT world, not necessarily the AV world.
IT world. And is there anything you can tell us about what Cybiz is doing moving forward? Like, is there anything we should keep an eye on, or like any insight?
Many things that we should look at. I think we should learn from other industries. I think with the control rooms, that a lot of control rooms only talk to their own company or maybe people within their own industry. They should look at what's happening in other industries as well. One of the topics I talked about today was video conference into control rooms, not only from a COVID-19 point of view, but how video conference can be integrated into control rooms in a clever way. I'm not talking about operators sitting with headsets on one-to-one team calls, for example. You can do that. It doesn't really add any value for the colleagues in the room. But a lot of our customers want to use that type of technology to bring the problem to the expert and not necessarily fly the expert out to the problem. And then, that has a huge impact on how competence is shared within these environments, which is really one of the underlying reasons for control rooms to be, right? Because you believe that people make better decisions together.
It's that what we say, there's a reason why we're here in an environment like this, because we need human interaction. And I know we can't always do that online, but the easier you can make it, more personalized, the more engaged you're going to feel, right?
And we are at Cybiz, if it's in control rooms or innovation centers or meeting rooms that we do, we believe that something good happens when people are sitting together, right? When people collaborate. It changes the way people work, and it also changes the way knowledge is shared within the organization.
Well, just look at us now, right? We'd never met before, and I know a lot about control rooms now. I don't think I'm going to change career yet, though. But I'm glad I can actually talk about it now. I understand what it is. So,
but also with live broadcasting, when you're on the air, it needs to work, right?
Exactly.
And that's the same concept for control rooms. We're dealing with technology. Technology is great until it fails.
Until it fails. But I can tell you, it's been working perfectly. I've kept an eye on us here. We got live questions, so it's all been great. So thank you so much again, Jan. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you
for having us.
Thank you, everyone who's joined us online today. This is our last session of the day. We will be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. ET, which is 3 p.m. local time here in Barcelona. So I hope you've enjoyed our sessions today. We'll see you tomorrow for some more amazing content. Take care. See you later.